Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go, go, go. Go Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go Toronto, go. Go Argos, go, go, go.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 15 of the Argo Bounce Live audio show with producer and co-hosts Chris Pomay and Nick Small. This is a weekly CFL podcast devoted to the 18-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. I hope everyone's doing well on this Friday, October 4th, 2024. This is going to be a good show with Nick and I. We're going to break down the Argos 37-31 win over the Alouettes. The importance of the win, moving within 1 point of Ottawa on this, 1 point behind Ottawa in the East, and moving, I believe, 4 points ahead of Hamilton, who's last in the East. And the Argos are on a bye week this week, and their next game is not until next Friday, October 11th at Winnipeg. I wanted to just say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed on YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And the Argo Bounce Live audio show is on the Argo Bounce. I'm going to re-say this again. I speak too fast sometimes. The Argo Bounce Live audio show is on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM and on all major audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Good Pods, etc. I'm looking forward to my show with Nick. And besides our show with me and Nick tonight, I did some post-game locker room interviews with head coach Ryan Dimwitty, DeMonte Coxey. Who else did I talk to? I talked to a couple other Argonauts as well, Kadeem Carey, and the star of the game, Liam. I'm going to try saying his last name, Liam Hairulahu. And I kind of cheated because the Argonauts gave me a media pronunciation sheet. So I think I finally got his name right. Really good guy to speak to, Liam. And he broke an Argos record set by Lance Tromick in 1988 twice. And he tied, I believe, Dave Ridgway and the former Tiger Cat kicker, Paul Osbaldiston as well. I'm going to bring on my co-host Nick Small, and we're going to talk some Toronto Argonauts football and some news around the CFL, and play some of these post-game interviews I did last week in Toronto at BMO Field. Good evening, Nick. How you doing?
Hey, Chris. When coming on tonight, I stuck with the white Argonauts hat, but really I should have swapped it out for a party hat because today is a significant day in Toronto Argonauts history. The franchise officially turns 151 years old today. A full year through their new century, their new bicentennial or sesquicentennial, whatever. They're now marching into their 200th, and had a pretty good year to celebrate too, with a huge celebratory win against a set of games so far this year.
Absolutely. 151 years. Wow. I did not know it was their birthday today. So 151 years and hopefully another 150 years from now, make them 300 years.
Yeah, pretty crazy to think about.
That's amazing. But it was a good win for the Argos. They needed the win, Nick. losing
Yeah,
to Hamilton again. Hamilton was breathing down their neck. Ottawa lost to Saskatchewan. So you can look at the glass half full, half empty. They were only a couple points being out of last place. But with this win, they gave themselves, a 4-point lead over Hamilton. And now they're within 1 point of second place Ottawa. And I really do feel it's critical for the Argos. I know they can win on the road. They've won a couple road games this year, but I really feel that it's critical for them to get that second position and at least have one playoff game at BMO Field, because the Argonauts have played well at BMO Field since Ryan Dinwiddie's been the head coach.
it would be nice to go to BMO Field and then travel to Montreal, not having to go to Ottawa and then Montreal for the 2 games. That's for sure. Yeah, thinking about how things look so far, like they looked. This game against Montreal was, in a lot of ways, similar to the Hamilton game in that it was a dogfight, a back and forth kind of battle. But in the end, I think all 3 phases of the Argonauts game really clicked together, aside from one little mistake offensively and one little mistake on special teams. It was a game where the Argonauts felt like they were the better team for the most part and were able to pull out a really important win against the favorites to win the Grey Cup coming into this year. And yeah, I think it's really important coming down to the stretch here. They've got a really key game next week after this bye against Winnipeg, who's just starting their game against Hamilton now as we're recording, airing this live now. And then they've got the home game against Ottawa, which is really going to be the deciding factor for if they get to host or if Ottawa gets to host. And then they have one more road game against Edmonton. One thing I got to cut in really briefly watching the pregame footage, Kate Burness and Milt Siegel got the overalls on. So I don't know how Winnipeg fans might feel with Milt wearing the overalls supporting Hamilton this week.
Yeah, the game against Montreal, really, special teams gave up 7 points. James Letcher, 100-yard punt return. You know what? He's a tremendous returner. That happens. That was 7 points. And then they got 7 points off of a Kelly interception. So 14 points right there that you can't really blame the defense. 7 on special teams. And then Montreal had a short field position after the Kelly interception, and that was 14 points right there. But the Argos offensively were great in this game. 517 yards of net offense, 293 in the air, and I think they had another 230 rushing. It was a balanced attack, Nick. I have no complaints. My only concern, it wasn't the Kelly pick, because it does happen and stuff like that. My only concern is the red zone offense. I know Liram set Argos record with 8 kicks, field goals, and tied a CFL record. But I talked to Ryan Dinwiddie about this too, and I said, was it a case, the red zone issues, was it a case of what Montreal was doing defensively, or you guys not executing? And I think he kind of hinted towards the execution. And the Argonauts, the running game was great, but I do feel they need to use Daniel Aboye more in the goal line situations, because I feel out of all the 3 backs, I think he might be the one that might be the most physical of the 3 running backs. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, the 2 things I saw, if we're going to narrow specifically on the goal line situations, I didn't think it was that bad, to be honest. And you look at the scoreboard, despite all the field goals, they put up 37 points. So it's not like
But it could have been 60.
Yeah, it could have been 87 points with the way that they were playing.
Yeah.
But and yeah, like you mentioned too, that they gave up 31, but one was directly off a kick return TD right at halftime, and then the other one was the
Kelly interception.
Yeah, the interception that was basically a pick six, more or less.
Yeah.
But you look at the red zone play, though. The 2 things I noticed from watching it, if you watch every single red zone drive, the 2 things that are the common trends is that, like you mentioned, they never really ran the ball when they got into that goal line territory at all. And then the other thing was that if you look at the second down scenarios in all of them, Montreal every single time brought extra pressure. And I don't know if it had to do with the receivers not being able to get enough separation from Montreal's man coverage, or whether it was, Chad Kelly just didn't have the time to react because there weren't enough on the line blocking, but they were never able to make a connection quick enough, which is what led to Chad being sacked or throwing it away, which led to them kicking the field goals instead of being able to put up 6.
Absolutely. And if we have time, Nick, I would like to air the interview with Ryan Dimwitty from the post game as well. I thought I enjoy talking to Ryan, and he's really good with the media and stuff like that, answering questions. So, what we're going to do, Nick, is we'll play the post game interview with Ryan Dimwitty, courtesy of myself. And Nick, I'll get your thoughts on his conference after the game as well. Just 1 second. And this courtesy of my YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe notification. This is Ryan Dinwiddie, the head coach of the Argonauts after their 37-31 win over Montreal at BMO Field in Toronto.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Coach, he's not the prettiest runner sometimes, but he's a
Anybody there? I think I lost the audio feed, unfortunately.
Ryan, execution and just Liam's performance tonight.
There we go.
Liam was huge. You got to make those kicks, right? He's clutch for us. I thought he did a good job with his kickoffs too. We knew what they were doing. We spent more time on the red zone this week more than ever. All the pressures they were doing, and then this play, this pressure's not very good. So I thought we had a good plan. We had the same with the sprint out with a 2-point play. We got to cut the Sam down so he doesn't bat that ball. Dejan had a chance. So we didn't run the ball as well as we wanted to when we were down the Texas.
When you talk about your running game, though, how important that was, especially in the first half when you dominated, but the score was still tough.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we had the pick, right, and then the return, and we had a chance to put the game away. We had the ball midfield with about 2 minutes left. Let's just go score a touchdown onto 2 and out. It's just unfortunate. We had a chance to put the game away, but we gave them 3 scores. Our guys, turning any animosity towards another unit, we just fought together. And you're not going to be perfect at all times, and we gave them a chance to get back in the ball game. Guys locked in and got together. That's a great leadership in that locker room.
Can you now start thinking about second place?
Oh, I mean, we're just trying to go 1-0. You know what I mean, Dan? But that's always been our goal. Obviously, first place, right? We got to get in the damn playoffs. But yeah, we're just moving forward with 1-0. We got a bye week, get healthy.
When you had Kaneen and Deontay running downhill like they did today, and there's 150 yards total between the two of them, what does that do for your team moving forward?
Well, I think we got to run it. Disappointing, we didn't run the ball well enough for the second down, right? So that's what we knew Montreal. They'd let us run on first down. They wanted to get us to that 2nd and 5, and you pass it, you run it. We got to run the ball that down the distance. So we didn't move the chains as much as I wanted to on second down, but I got to go look at it, right? So, I thought it was a great effort. I thought we played physical. We knew we had to beat them up physically, and they're a physical front seven. That was our goal going into it. We got to get Kadeem a new helmet. I mean, how many times that ball, his helmet came off, right? So, we didn't play a great football game. We played good enough to win, but we got to continue to get better.
And Danny and Dave for that one. The quiet 115 from Makai Pope. Can you just talk about his progression? For sure, under the CFL, just what he adds to that offense and the chemistry that him and Chad have kind of found here early on.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's got length. He's got some twitch too for a tall guy. Came in halfway through camp, so he was a little bit behind the 8 ball, and then we had him at X, number 1 in the boundary, and then we moved him to W, which he's playing now. So we moved him around, and he's really picked up the offense, and he's a hard worker. You don't hear much about him. He just puts his head down and goes to work. So very happy with his growth. We got to get Morrison coaching some more touches too. But I thought offensively we had a chance to be really explosive. But we got to score more in the red zone.
At the end there, especially with Montreal still having a chance to come back in the game, with midway in the secondary taking not getting points there.
Yeah, no doubt. We said we got to keep it in front of us, right? They only got 40-some seconds, and I told our D line, we get a sack, the game's going to be over. So got close on the second down there, but I just was proud of that unit, man. They fought. Our backs are against the wall, and we've answered that twice now, right? We can't look in the past. We just got to look forward, but. There's some games we probably should have won. Maybe some games we should have lost. But we got to clean up some things and continue to get better. I mean, it's playoff football. We got to make sure we give ourselves opportunity to get in the dance.
Coach, you know that we were sitting here and you said the defense was playing way soft, especially down the stretch against Hamilton. What did you see overall from the defense? Held up at the end. The last two drives, no first down in those two drives. What was impressive to you with that?
Yeah, I think we got after the quarterback. You know, we were pushing the linemen. You know, Flo almost put one of our offensive tackles in Cody's lap, right? So we got to win up front, and that's going to help our back end. But I thought those guys made play on the third down right at midfield. So, yeah, I thought when the plays were there to be made, we made the right plays.
So Team had a couple big runs to start the game. The 12 and 13-yard runs at the beginning there. Montreal's the second worst run defense right now, the second effective in the league. Was that like a concerted effort to run the ball early enough and establish that, or was it the rain, or was the idea that?
Yeah, for sure, especially with the rain, right? So we were going to actually kick to them. So we wanted to establish the run. Obviously, we missed some throws in the game in the rain, so I wanted to keep that out of there. We always want to run it down. It was there. I mean, they're going to make you run it. They're second in the league as far as giving up rushing yards. They play a light box, right? So they're going to force you to be patient. You got to get chunks. They want to keep you in second 5 or 6. They'll give up 5 yards to carry, right? But they know they're going to win second down. So they had a good plan. I thought we had a good plan as well. Two good football teams, and it's a great game.
Last question again. You haven't had a chance to look at the sample. How would you evaluate?
Yeah, I thought Ryan played well. He got called with the one holding. I didn't see it. I'm watching. I'm like, I don't know how he got called for holding there, but Ryan is leader of that old line group. He can play, tackle, guard, and center, so he gets a lot of flexibility. But he's a pro. Very proud of Ryan to be able to step in and we can run the ball like that with. Bunch of, we got them moving parts from time to time. It's been like that throughout the year, but I trust our old line unit.
Thank you, Coach.
Enjoy your bye week.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, that was Ryan Dinwiddie, the head coach of the Toronto Argonauts after their win at BMO Field. Nick, thoughts on Ryan Dinwiddie?
Yeah, it sounds like that everything went according to their game plan, how they planned on executing it. It seemed like Montreal was, as you heard from Ryan, willing to give up the 5 yards on the rushes, but they weren't expecting the Argonauts to be able to rush for 10 plus on many of those carries. Looking back on this, I think what's interesting too is sort of the lack of questions talked about defensively, specifically with Tunde Adeleke having to slot in kind of last minute at the Sam linebacker position as Priester was last minute scratch. And then the other individual, the guy who was able to dress because Priester was out, Tashawn Blackburn, ends up having an interception there near the end of the game to kind of ice the game. The one thing I will say, though, as a caveat, and I'm not picking on him, like this is something I have a bone to pick with everybody who does that. An INT looks great on the stat sheet, but if you just let the ball hit the ground, you would have significantly better field position than had you ended up with the interception like you did. But I thought overall, yeah, it was a really well executed game plan. I think you could see in particular with the red zone that they were ready for the second down pressure that Montreal was providing. And unfortunately, they just really weren't able to connect on it. It was an executional fail rather than a strategic fail, like we might have blamed in the loss to Hamilton. And like you said, just executing better and making less mistakes that result in 6 going the other way.
Yeah, because Nick, I'm not saying you're going to score touchdowns every time you're in the red zone, obviously. But even if they had scored 1 more or 2 more, instead of kicking field goals, this game would have been a blowout. As far as I'm concerned, this game should have been a blowout. But I'm going to say this about Liam, and I'm going to say his last name, Hairulahu. I think I finally got it right. He's been a tremendous addition to this team, and he's been very consistent. And I call him Toronto's most reliable player this year, and I said to Ryan Dinwiddie, obviously you want to get touchdowns instead of field goals, but I said when you need the points and you can't get in the end zone, Mr. Reliable gets the job done, and 8 field goals, tying a CFL record and breaking an Argonaut record set in 1988 by Lance Chomick, who did it twice.
It's too bad that this was also the same week that Brett Lawler was able to make 7 straight and from a longer total distance. Liam had the longer of the two longest field goals, but the average depth of the kicks for Lowther in Saskatchewan was higher. So Lirim didn't even get player of the week awards as a kicker, which is kind of the disappointing thing out of it.
Absolutely. I spoke to him. I'm going to air the interview with Liam after, but I spoke to him and he agreed with me. I said, out of all the stadiums, I think BMO Field might be the trickiest because of being off Lake Ontario and the wind conditions and the goalposts moving in. And that was a weather game too. Obviously, it didn't rain the entire game, but it did rain a part of the game, and the field is beat up at this time of the year with the soccer team and the football team, and they're the only grass field in the CFL. So he agreed with me, and I said I think you did a great job because it's not easy to kick in that stadium. So I definitely think he should have been one of the CFL stars of the week because 8 for 8, and they weren't just chip shot kicks. He did hit one, I think, from 52, Nick, in that game. 52.
Longest I have here, 49.
Well, and it's not easy on a wet turf, and as you can see, the wind as well. I'm gonna get to another question, Nick. How important was this win with Ottawa's loss and Hamilton's win over the BC Lions last week in terms of playoff positioning?
Well, yeah, of course it's huge. It closes up the gap now to just a single point. Of course, Ottawa had the one tie earlier in the year, so it puts them in a position though where there's not going to have to be any worries about tiebreakers or looking into weird things like how many points has your team given up or something like that to determine that spot. It's going to come straight down to who ends up having the most total points, because I don't think it's like I said, I think this is only the second time in the last 20 years where we've had two tied games in one season. We're not going to see a third. So it just comes down to
I hope you're right.
Oh, I know I'm right. It's going to come down to them getting a win out of either in Winnipeg or in Edmonton, which both are quite possible. And then really the one that's important is at home. They need to get a little bit of vengeance for the game earlier in Ottawa. And I think what helped with this too was it in the way that this conditions were at BMO Field last week, it removed some of the excuses that led to some of the problems in the game against Ottawa the week previously when they were there. So now I think they're ready for this kind of wet, cold, autumn-y kind of weather that we're going to see from here on until we go into the warm, climate-controlled stadium at BC Place on the 17th of November for the Grey Cup.
Absolutely. And Ottawa right now is still in a good position, but I don't know what's going on with their quarterback position. I guess Jeremiah is now the starter now going forward.
I'd say it's the problem's more defensively. Losing a Darius Pickett for the year is just absolutely devastating. Because he's the leader. He's the equivalent of Winnie McManus here in Toronto, and you saw how different things were on the defense when he wasn't playing. It's the same thing now in Ottawa, that they're gonna have to find a way. Guys are gonna have to step up, and it's like, I mean, every team in the league has its own challenges dealing with players who are missing and whatever. And like, I'm looking at Ottawa's injured list right now. They've got probably 16, 17 players on that 6-game injured list. So it's just.
And we got a reviewer.
Yeah, it's Dr. Ty Attaboy. I saw those photos of the Toronto Zoo there the other day. It looks like you guys had a great time with the Haggertys.
Hey, Nick, one thing I want to say, and Ty is watching. At the end of the game, I think one of the biggest plays was Daniel Oboye's 26-yard run, which basically set up another field goal for the Argos. So I think he had a really good game too. He only had 8 carries. Daniel Oboye 8 carries, 39 yards, and he had that key 26-yard run late in the fourth quarter. And what I like about this team is they don't have power backs like AJ Ouellette and Andrew Harris, but they have three very good running backs. And let's talk about Devontae McMahon as well. He had 5 carries in this game for 67 yards. So their offense is balanced passing wise, but running wise as well. And I think it's nice to have a 3-headed monster on the running game as well.
Yeah, what I also noticed too, looking at it, they ran the wide receiver sweep as well with Dejon Brissett, which again got a 13-yard carry for another first down. I think that the way that this offense is constructed right now is really beneficial to a strong running game, because it's what's really allowed things to open up for Chad later on in the games. If they're able to do this and be able to march to the 20-yard line, even if they don't get a touchdown all the time, like we saw in this game. I got to say it again. They put 37 points up on the board. The defense doesn't have to be standing on its head like it did last season, where they were winning a couple games, a couple close, low-scoring games. If they're able to put this kind of yardage and this kind of points up on the board every single week, there's no reason this team can't win in the playoffs to go on to the Grey Cup. And I think what lends itself to is with the build of the wide receivers, the ability that you can run plays like that sweep with Brissett. You could see it run with Makai Polk. You could see it run with Kevin Mittal. You could see it run with Daniels or Coxie. Anybody can run that, and it just leaves so much options available and all kinds of trick plays that can really screw up opposing defenses.
I wanted to say something too. I agree with you on most parts, Nick, but to get to win in the playoffs as well, the red zone offense has to be a little bit better, because a team like Winnipeg, you're going to need every point. And generally in football, field goals are nice, but they don't always win you games. So I just would like to, against Winnipeg on Friday, October 11th, see the Argonauts when they're in the red zone just be a little more successful. But it is great to have Liam as your kicker, because he is Mr. Reliable. But I just hopefully they can get that red zone offense going a little bit more. 517 yards, 37 points. They could have easily had 50 or 60 against Montreal. Montreal had some key injuries as well. Nick, I wanted to talk to you about the development of Makai Polk?
Makai Polk.
Makai Polk and Kevin Mittal. Just talk about the receiving core, and it just seems like now with Kelly back, every week somebody steps up on the receiving core for this team.
Yeah, well, you look at earlier in the year, they had Rashid Bailey, they let him go for Makai Polk, and there was a lot of, and I mean, we brought it up ourselves on our show. There was a lot of nervousness, complaints about letting him go, but it's looking like as Polk continues to develop, he looks like one of these missing pieces that we were kind of lacking from sort of a bigger, stronger wide receiver up in the middle. And we've seen it now several times with Chad, that he's been able to throw a deep 60, 70-yard bomb to him out wide open in deep center field. And it's what's really, I think, gotten the offense going on that next level. And then Kevin Mittal, looking back on how the draft went, everybody thought Kevin Mittal was going to go to Ottawa there at the start of the draft. And they ended up going with a different wide receiver, and it left Mittal open for that spot. And he was coming into the draft, probably the most CFL ready. And I think he's probably got, among Canadian wide receivers, he's got a higher ceiling than a lot of current receivers on the roster. And I think, I mean, he was off to a bad start because he was injured in camp, but I think as things continue to build, I think he's going to, kind of in the same way we saw chemistry build with Curly Gins and McLeod Bethel-Thompson a few seasons ago, I think you're going to see something very similar with Kevin Mittal with Chad Kelly going forward.
Well, that Kelly bomb, 77 yards to Polk, that was nice as well. A lot of depths on this team, and you're right, every game is somebody different. Only concern is, Nick, I know Chad Kelly in the fourth quarter left the game. From what I saw, was it a knee or an ankle injury? Because somebody said it was a cramp, but it wasn't hot enough that night to cramp up on the field. You know exactly what it was? because he
Oh
obviously
no,
came back.
you would have had more information coming through than
Yeah.
I did. So
Yeah.
I have no clue. I wasn't worried about it. He came back in. Dukes ran the 2 plays. I think he threw a 6-yard pass, and then I think he just threw the other one away. So it could have been part an equipment issue too. Like you never know, but it wasn't anything that showed he was having like any major issue.
I should have asked that question because nobody else from the media did. I know Kelly came back in, but I did get the chance to talk to Dinwiddie about the importance of the win, but also it's a bye week and the Argos are dinged up. It's that time of the year, and most of these teams are dinged up with injuries. So I think this bye week came at a good time for the Toronto Argonauts, especially going into Winnipeg next Friday night as well.
I wonder if any of them are incognito here in the Hammer watching Hamilton lose 7-0 as Bo Levi Mitchell completes a 20-yard pass to Smith out in the flats at the 16-yard line. Yeah, I wonder if they'll be there at that.
Nick,
but
I did do another interview with Kadeem Carey. To me,
sorry, a little bit of stream delay.
No worries. Hey, Nick, I did a quick interview with Kadeem Carey. To me, he was one of my stars of the game. 13 carries, 90 yards for a touchdown. And he also had, 3 catches for 49 yards. And he's just been such a valuable addition to this team. Not just he can pass protect as well, but he's a good running back. And he's also very valuable catching the ball as well. And he's been a really good addition to this team. And I just wanted to play my post-game interview with Kadeem Carey after the game at BMO Field, just for a couple minutes.
It's pretty wild to think after 230 yards rushing that only 90 of those came from Kadeem Carey directly.
And that's a great thing where they have so many weapons as running backs. So I think that's great. And you'll see David Morsuti in the background too. This is from my YouTube channel, everybody. Please subscribe to my Chris Pomay YouTube channel. This is Kadeem Carey talking to the media and myself after the Argos win at BMO Field last Saturday night.
What's it say about this group when you guys beat it against the team that's tops in the CFL and having their number now beat one of the season series against them?
I mean, it just says a lot about this team. I mean, we're hungry. We believe in each other. I mean, I always believe about catching fire going into the playoffs, late half of the season, and I think that's been our focus in this locker room. I mean, we lost some close ones, we won some good ones. It's about finding that rhythm later on and just, pushing through and getting hot at the right time.
I want to talk to you about they score a big return there first half. You guys are going to bounce back in a field goal, tie it up. All of a sudden, the locker room have to come out and fire a
I mean, Coach went in there and just said, keep playing. We truly believe we're the better team, and the results will show. We just keep going out there and hitting them in the mouth. And that's what we did. We played all 60, and it showed. I mean, we're going to have to see them again. And so they know what's going to expect. So it's going to be a rumble.
What does it say about you and your counter major? I mean, the relationship that you two guys have built, just how formidable you guys can be down the stretch.
I mean, that's my scooter boy. That's my boy, man. Between me, him, and 21, we can pound that ball, and our front line is one of the best I've been a part. So when they give a push like that in the game, it could be trouble for the defense, especially when it starts to get colder into the playoffs. So, I mean, I'm just trying to rally up my boys, my men, the RBs, but they're going to lean on us later on in this half.
I don't think we saw you play without your helmet on. What's going on with the helmet there? Someone else give you your helmet for tonight?
I ain't gonna lie, man. I probably just wanted some more camera time, some FaceTime, people show my face a little bit. But I'll probably get my helmet fixed. It was a little loose today.
If I say come back healthy and then eager, what does that mean to you?
Come back healthy and eager? Man, just come back really, take care of your body, come back hungry, be prepared to win. Just tunnel vision.
The second effort today, how important was that for you? You wanted to come up the second half. Anybody better?
Yes, I mean, that was huge to me. I mean, I didn't get to finish the game last game, to come in here in the second half to finish this half as a team, as a unit. I mean, it showed a lot. I mean, it really showed a lot for me as this team. It shows resilience.
After a win like that, I mean, do you wish the bye week was maybe another week there, or is it coming at the right time?
To me, I wish to buy another week. I mean, the way that this team is starting to catch a fire, starting to feel, I want to keep going. Forget getting healthy and all that stuff. We need to catch fire, and I feel it's contagious. But we have to be pros. We got to handle this bye week the right way. We got to put in the work. We got to stay hot, and then come back next 2 weeks and do the same thing.
Hey, Kadeem, you guys had over 550 yards of net offense tonight. This offense is dangerous. You guys can run the ball and pass the ball. And just thoughts on your overall season here in Toronto so far?
Man, I just have to say, I'm just happy to have my man Kelly back there. That's just what me and him could do together. Me and him text all offseason. When I signed here, I was excited to play with 12. And just our talent together, I knew we could put up big numbers. Better yet, try to go out there and get a ring together. So those numbers is expected between me and 12. We just got to get a ring together.
Yeah, I know the running game is always in the game plan, but especially in the first half, you guys ran at will. How important is that for an offense to be able to do that against a team that's number one in the?
It's very important. I mean, to run the ball, keep the defense off the field, keep them healthy, and get the Nick Bicks on the defense, beat them up a little bit. It's huge. Then the defense starts to come down. Kelly doesn't throw it over the top. Big play alert. So if we can keep that recipe going, it could be a big trouble for other teams.
What did you do at halftime, though? I mean, as dominant as you were, the score's still tied.
They made big plays. I mean, Montreal is a team of crazy plays. They never give up. So, I mean, we just have to keep fighting. We expect them to make those plays. Kickoff return, we just have to keep our heads in the game, be us, and just finish it out strong.
How big a win is this for this team?
This is huge. Yeah. This could turn our season around, and I'm going to make sure it turns our season around.
Thank you, sir.
How big is the bye week?
I ain't going to say it's too big, but it's good for our healthiness, get everybody healthy. It was good to see 18 out there. We're starting to get 48. We're starting to get our healthy team back. And then you can see what is starting to happen when you get a healthy team. So one more week of healthiness, we can be trouble.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Kadeem Carey of the Toronto Argonauts. Nick, thoughts on Kadeem Carey and that post game with the media?
I love hearing Kadeem reference everybody by number. So for reference, 24 is Deontay McMahon, 21's Adebaboye, 12's obviously Chad Kelly, and then he mentioned 18 and 48. That's Dejon Brissett and Wynton McManus, of course. So, I love the enthusiasm, the energy, the positivity. He looks like he did 2 seasons ago in Calgary. Everybody seems to forget that this guy was the best running back in the league 2 years ago and missed most of last year because of injury. But he looks like he's ready in prime position, and you saw it from himself. He's hungry for a win, and I think now as guys are coming back in the right time, right as they get into this playoff push and on, this is like how, in baseball, look at how your Detroit Tigers have suddenly got hot and won their first round of the playoffs against the Houston Asterisks and are ready to move on to that next round. It's the same thing here with the Argos. This is their time where they've really caught fire. And it was the same thing with Montreal last year. They won 6 straight coming into the stretch and then won their East semis at home, the East final in Toronto, and then the Grey Cup against Winnipeg. So I could absolutely see the same thing happening for Toronto here right now. This is the really integral part of the season. And what makes it even more exciting is that it's really anybody's game this year, because aside from Winnipeg making the playoffs and Montreal clinching the East, everything else is still technically up for grabs. It's a hell of a lot more entertaining than having 6 games to go and already clinching the division and trying to find out ways to rest guys while also keeping them healthy. That's not an issue for them this year. They know, as Kadeem said himself, tunnel vision, lockdown, focus on winning these games.
What I liked about the Argos game plan offensively is that opening drive, they got carried involved in the game right away, because I feel when Carey's involved in the game right away, it gets him going, and I think teams like it when the Argos go away from it, and I think going forward they need to make sure they get Carey involved in the game right away. And I like the fact McMahon had his touches and Aboye as well, so they've got a 3 monster running back attack there right now. I did talk to some of the players too, and I said I know it's still the regular season, but I said with 3 games left to the playoffs, it's now like playoff football. Every game really means something. And obviously Dinwiddie and the Argos want to get that second seed. So the Winnipeg game, I expect a full effort against Winnipeg. And that's going to be a real test, because I think Winnipeg's a better football team than they were when the Argos beat them in Toronto. And then Ottawa obviously is going to be a huge game. And then the Edmonton game, you can't let up, because Edmonton, obviously, I don't think is going to make the playoffs this year. But the guys on the Elks, even at that last game where they're not going to make the playoffs, most likely, they're going to still come out hard. So these last 3 games, I feel if the Argos can win at least 2 out of 3, I do believe they should get that second seed in the East and a home game at BMO Field.
Yeah, going back into this game, when you look at the way, because they opened running where they would run Kadeem for 2 plays, they kept getting first down, so then they swapped to McMahon. They kept getting first downs, and then they swapped to Adebayo. So, and you compare it to the Montreal game plan, and they hardly ran the ball at all. And in terms of time of possession, you could see it reflected. And because in the first half, Toronto had the ball for close to 20 minutes, and Montreal barely had it for 10. So as Kadeem said himself, it came to just a couple of odd explosive plays, some taking advantage on some mistakes to make it a closer game than it was. But really, like when you rewatch the game, in terms of all the metrics that matter, Toronto was clearly the more dominant team through that half, and good on them to not get discouraged, just kind of like in the BC game, to stick with it and pulling out a key win from it. Looking ahead, of course, you talked about Winnipeg. I actually think the Argos match up quite well against Winnipeg, and we've seen that the last couple of years they've played them, including they almost won in Winnipeg with Cam Dukes as the starting quarterback, because they rested Chad Kelly for that game. So I mean, I think they match up really well and get fired up for playing Winnipeg in the same way that Hamilton gets fired up to play us. And then Ottawa is obviously going to be a really important game to close out the home season. And then Edmonton, it'll be a very different feel in Edmonton compared to what it was when they came into Toronto. So I think you're going to have to look at it as almost an entirely different team, especially if Trey Ford ends up starting.
That's true, but just enjoy the bye week and then just worry about Winnipeg and just take care of business. The Argos can't get that second seed, if they don't take care of their own business. So
yep, so you can do control what you can control.
Just got to
pull
take
out a
care of
win.
one game right now. All right, Nick, let's get some more questions, by the way. Who were some Argos who stood out in this game for you, Nick?
Yeah, well, I want to give a bit of love to the defense, of course. I mentioned it earlier that I was really impressed by the play of both Tashawn Blackburn, who dressed last minute, and Tunde Adeleke to fill in that Sam position, especially Adeleke. That's a really hard position to play, and Adeleke fit it really well, and he was all over the field defensively for them. So I give a huge shout out to him. And we've already talked about guys like Kelly, Hawryllahu, Carey, the 3-headed Hydra, I may as well say, with Adebayo and McMahon as well. Polk looked great. Coxie looked great. All those guys stood out. And I think the other part too is the offensive line. There were a lot of challenges getting rushed by Montreal defenders, especially on second down. And I thought overall they held it up. They held it up pretty well, in my opinion.
And the big thing in this game compared to the final, other than the one turnover by Kelly, which does happen in football, the Argos played a fairly clean game. Now, one concern I do have is the Argos did have 8 penalties for 75 yards. So I really do feel they need to cut down on those penalties, hopefully in a couple weeks against Winnipeg, because 8 penalties for 75 yards to me is a little too many penalties there.
Yeah, one other one that I'll shout out that probably got missed was with Isaiah Cage being out, filling in the left tackle spot. Ryan Hunter moved over, and I thought he did a really good job as well, filling in for there. Tackles are the hardest position to play, probably after quarterback. So I give a lot of credit to anybody who can come in, fill in that spot, and play very well, like he did.
Dan, Ralph from the Canadian Press brought that up, and Ryan was saying, yeah, Ryan Hunter is very valuable, and how important it is to have good depth on your offense line and defensive line. Now, this team has been pretty lucky so far, Nick. I know Kelly's suspension, but they really haven't lost anybody for the season yet. So, with 3 games left, it's important to try to. I'm just saying they've been very lucky not to have any season-ending injuries so far, and I personally think this bye week came at a perfect time. I know Kadeem in the interview said after this win they want to keep playing, but this time of the year these guys are banged up, and it also gives the Argos coaching staff a little more time to prepare for Winnipeg and actually watch the Winnipeg Hamilton game tonight too.
Well, let's if we're talking about guys who are game changers that are being gone out for the season for the Argos, let's not count out Darius Sirocco, the most outstanding offensive lineman last year, who we haven't had our normal center play all year. So offensive linemen get shunned or ignored quite a lot, and having him out is a big loss right now. I can't imagine how different things would be if he was there in the lineup.
Hey, one guy I want to shout out on defense. We always talk about Deshaun Amos, but I really like Benji Franklin. He's always there to seem to get fumbles, and I really think he's done a good job this year. Benji Franklin. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Benji's done really well too, filling in that boundary position. I think, especially coming from the college game, coming into it, he's filled in that position quite well, and yeah, I think if you're a good college field side corner or halfback, you can probably come into the boundary side, and it's about the same amount of space on that shorter side in the Canadian field. So yeah, definitely, because there's been a lot of probably defensively, the ones who have been critiqued a lot have been the secondary. So for him to have really stepped it up and have a couple of good games now back to back, pretty happy to see that.
Nick, what do the Argos need to do to improve the red zone offense going into Winnipeg next Friday? What are some ideas that you think could get a little more success in the red zone?
Probably I'd like to see a little bit more running on first down in the red zone. I think they do kind of get away from it a little bit as they get closer. And we saw the 2 touchdown plays that they did score in this game were off running plays. So I think maybe that's something you can look at. I think the only concern with it comes from being too predictable. Yeah, I'd have to look at the film to really come up with something more concrete. I think challenges that they had offensively was picking up the blitz enough to give Chad time to make a read. And I think that because of the turnover earlier, he didn't want to try to force another throw that could result in an interception, which I think was the right game plan. I'll say what you want about getting 7 over 3, but I will take 3 over 0 or -6 any day of the week. So I thought I'm not too overly concerned about the red zone.
We'll see. I really do think you're going to need that extra touchdown in the playoffs. But Kelly in this game was good, but he didn't have to throw the ball 45, 50 times. Kelly was 19 for 30, 287 yards. It would have been nice to see him get a touchdown pass in there. Only 1 interception, but overall, I thought he was good. Other than the 1 mistake, I thought he was good. And I think when the Argos don't pass the ball 45, 50, 60 times, I think they're a much better football club, because when you have a running game, it takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback. And you also want to keep Chad Kelly healthy, because whether you like him or not, he does present challenges to the defense that Dukes and Arbuckles don't. And I'm not disrespecting Dukes or Arbuckles, but Kelly's obviously he can run the ball too, but his deep ball is a threat, and the Argos are more of a threat offensively than they were earlier in the season. So it's important for them to take a little pressure off of him as well. And it's nice to have that running game. And I'm old school, Nick. I know everybody in the NFL is like pass, 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 but I still think a well-balanced offense, especially going into the playoffs, Nick, against good teams, and also you're going to get inclement weather at some point this season, whether it's in Toronto or on the road. And it's important to have a balanced offense where you have the running game going as well. And we'll just see if this team can get their consistency together before the playoffs. But I really think next week's game against Winnipeg is going to be intriguing. And then Ottawa and then Edmonton. The Edmonton game worries me the most because sometimes it's not the record. And these guys are professional athletes. So I just basically, Nick, I'm just going to ramble on here. If they can get 2 out of 3 wins here, they should get that second seed over Ottawa. We'll see if that tie helps Ottawa in the end, but we'll see.
Yep, we will. I think really it comes down to the head-to-head game at home. So, but I mean, if they could come into Winnipeg and steal a win from there, that
absolutely
just sets it up even better. As I haven't seen
that would
the
be
rest.
huge.
Yeah. Trying to jump ahead back on the schedule because I don't remember Ottawa's off the top of my head. I think they have.
They have a bye week this week.
Yeah, like us in Montreal, then in Toronto against us, and then hosting Hamilton. So they play one more game against each of the East teams. So if we're to beat Winnipeg and Montreal manages to beat Ottawa, like I think most people would expect, that puts a ton of pressure on them to beat us the following week.
Yep. All right, Nick, we're going to do our normal segment before we wrap up the show in a few minutes. The good, the bad, the ugly versus the Montreal Alouettes. I'll go first. My ugly was special teams with James Letcher getting the 100-yard punt return. That was the only ugly of the game, I thought. The bad was the Kelly interception. The red zone offense struggled a little bit, and the penalties, 8 penalties for 75 yards. And my good was the Argos offense. It was well balanced running and passing, 517 yards net offense, 37 points, and obviously getting 21 of those from Liam. So those are my good, bad, and ugly in this game, Nick.
Yeah, the game itself was great. It was a good, entertaining game. The bad and the ugly is going to be kind of weird for me because I'm sort of mishing it together. So we talked about it, hyped it up all week that it was the Indigenous Culture Night with the Orange Shirt Day and everything. And and I'm not attacking that. Like that was an astounding success. The drummer groups that they had at the opening and at halftime, they were fantastic and amazing. And it was a really good day with a lot of positive energy over truth and reconciliation and all of that it entails. The thing that I kind of found was disappointing though was that they ended up playing the O Canada with just a recording, like a recorded version. And while I don't mind that, there's nobody to goof it up. There's usually you have everybody in the crowd singing along, which we did. I found it kind of disappointing that when you see a lot of other groups, especially now with having Indigenous groups come in and singing O Canada in their native tongue, I would have liked to have seen something like that with O Canada, which was a little bit disappointing. So I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a bad or an ugly, but it definitely came to me as a missed opportunity and maybe something that they could look at for next year if anybody from MLSE is listening to our show.
Absolutely. And the attendance, I know the fans were great and they were noisy, but it would have been nice to draw 18 or 19,000. The attendance was announced at 14,885. Obviously, Nick, it is improving compared to last year, but it would be nice to see 17, 18,000 on a regular basis. And one thing, Nick, City of Guelph, 150,000 people, drew 8,500 for the Griffins homecoming win over Waterloo. Troy is 4 million. I still think
Well,
there's no reason why the Argos cannot draw 20,000 a game on a regular basis. And BMO Field, let's face it, is much nicer than Alumni Stadium. No disrespect to Alumni Stadium. BMO Field is one of the nicest facilities in the CFL. And the Argonauts, we've talked about this, Nick. They put on a good on-field product the last 4 years under Pinball and Ryan Dinwiddie. And I still don't see why they can't draw 17, 18, 19, 20,000 on a regular basis. And that's my rant for tonight about that.
Well, if I'm gonna retort to that, I mean, you can look at the fact that, again, you mentioned explicitly that it's a homecoming game, and homecoming entails a lot of crazy shenanigans that a normal regular season game, when there's a reason why that game spikes to 8,000 and then it drops to probably, if I had to guess, 2,000 or 3,000.
No, the Griffins actually average about 5,000 to 6,000 a game.
Okay, well, it's still
They
far
do.
short than the 15 that the Argos are getting close to putting up on a game by game basis now, and that's what I see as the big accomplishment and what we see going forward with MLSC. Speaking of which, they are hiring a new position for some form of an upper management role with both TFC and the Argonauts as a joint role. So if anybody's interested in applying for that and has worked in the big leagues, there's an opportunity there for someone. But it's part of what I think I brought up last week. That's sort of with all this Rogers stuff and everything going on. The irony is, if we really want an NFL team here, not that I expect it to happen, but if people really want an NFL team here, they need to prove that we can sell out BMO Field for Toronto Argonauts games, because until that
I agree,
happens,
Nick.
there's no chance
I agree,
we're going
Nick.
to we're not going to put a purpose-built 55,000 football stadium somewhere to have 10,000 people show up.
I agree with you, Nick. Hey, Nick, if you
Ooh.
got a few more minutes, I want to just do two more clips. Demonte Cooksey and Liam, I was able to interview, and the interviews are only a couple of minutes, so I just like to do that, and then we're going to wrap up the show with our Argo 3 stars of the game and your week 18 predictions around the Canadian Football League. So I have Demonte Cooksey, number 86 for the Toronto Argonauts. And again, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is from the Argos post-game media scrum after their win against Montreal on Saturday night at BMO Field. Chris Pomay, radio host of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show on WQE 99.1 FM. I'm here in the Toronto Argonauts locker room after their 37-31 win over the Montreal Alouettes tonight. And I have a special guest here with me, wide receiver number 86, Demonte Cooksey. And Demonte, I just wanted to get your thoughts on tonight's win over a very good Montreal club.
Say thank you to God, got a good dub today. O-line did their thing, and defense did their thing, and we came together and got a win. So, we all excited.
What makes this offense so dangerous?
We got a lot of guys on the offensive side of the ball. We got Kadeem, we got D-Money, we got DeVars, we got Kai, we got a lot of guys, Tommy, Dejan. So we got a lot of guys that can go out and make plays, and our O-line is doing a great job this year. So it's kind of hard to stop us when we're rolling.
How important was this win with Ottawa losing today and Hamilton continued to play well?
It's just a blessing. Everybody, we hope everybody do good. We just trying to win the next game, and today was that game. We had to win the next one. So we all just excited and fired up and extremely humble.
I find with this team, it's not just one guy, it's a number of guys. And I wanted to mention Liam tonight with his 8 field goals. Thoughts on him as a teammate and a player?
Teammate Liam is a great person. He's always here early. He does everything that we ask him to do. And, he's just a great player. And he's been showing up for us all year. So, we can't complain. Liam does his job, and that's what we love.
And finally, how important was this win coming into a bye week? I guess Winnipeg's coming up October 11th.
It was a great win because it was this win. It was the next one. It was the next game. So I'm glad everybody, we showed up today and, we executed and was able to come through with the dub.
Final thoughts for Argo fans.
Go Argos. Let's finish it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, Nick, that was Demonte Cooksey. What did you thought of the interview with him? And that was his son, who's a little Argos fan as well.
Yeah, I kept wanting to say, don't eat the microphone. It's not food. But yeah, I think what I like is the plug into Liram, the whole fact mentioning that he's there from dawn till dusk working on his craft. It's like a golf swing. It's something that you just constantly want to keep working on. Um, yeah. So if we jump ahead, maybe now with the 3 stars coming up, I'll take the honors of going first and getting out of the way quick. Give some credit to the O line for some fantastic run blocking. That's going to be one of my stars there for this game. Second, I am going to give the star to, I think Liram Haralahu obviously is spoken for, so I'm not going to give one to him, but just to pick someone else. But I really like I said before, I liked Tunde Adeleke and I really like Blackburn's play. So I'm going to give my other 2 stars to them on the defensive side of the ball.
Hey Nick, and one thing doing the media side too, I've been in the locker room a number of times, and everybody seems to really get along. And I know Ryan Dinwiddie gets his criticism, but I'll tell you, he doesn't seem to panic. And these guys seem to get their leadership from Ryan Dinwiddie and this coaching staff. And these guys all seem to generally like each other and want to see everybody succeed. And I can say this: the environment in the Argos locker room is very positive, and these guys seem to work well together. It's a team family environment, and you got to give the Argonauts credit for that. And Ryan and Dinwiddie, these guys take the character and personality of their head coach, and they don't get too high when they win, but they don't get too low when they lose. And that's just my thoughts of doing some freelance media work for this team. And my Argos 3 stars of the game, Nick, Liam, number 1. My number 2 star is the workhorse. I call him the workhorse, Kadeem Carey. And the number 3 star, I could have put Chad Kelly because I thought Chad Kelly was pretty solid in this game. I'm going to go with a wide receiver in McKay Polk. Obviously, with the 77-yard pass, I just think he's developed and who knows, next game it might be Coxie that has the big 100-yard game, or Devarius Daniels, and that's the thing. Each of these guys could also be the number 1 receiver on this team, and they have good depths, and that's my 3 stars, Nick.
Yep.
And a
I
shout
agree
out to
with
Benji Franklin. Benji Franklin, he's somebody I like, and Blackburn. I had the pleasure of interviewing Blackburn when they were at training camp at the University of Guelph too, and I think he's been a nice addition to the Argos secondary.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Nick, before we air our last interview with Liam at the end of the game, we're going to do our final segment. Thoughts on CFL Week 18 games, Winnipeg at Hamilton, Calgary at BC, both tonight. And then Saturday night, we have Saskatchewan at Edmonton, with Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal having bye weeks.
Well, it might be a bit of a cop-out for me making this pick now because Nichols just picked off Bo Levi Mitchell at about the 30-yard line. But I picked Winnipeg from the beginning over this game. So I have it in my picks to prove it if you doubt it. So Winnipeg over Hamilton. I have BC over Calgary, and then I have Saskatchewan over Edmonton. I'm going with the favorites for all of these games. Last time there were only 3 games. It didn't work out very well for the favorites, but we'll see what happens this week.
All right, I'm going to go with a couple upsets. I'm going to go with Hamilton over Winnipeg, even though the game's underway. I don't know what the score is right now. And then I'm going to go with Calgary over BC. I just do not like the way the BC Lions are heading into the playoffs. And I know it's a long shot, but I'm going to go with Hamilton over Winnipeg, Calgary over BC. And I do agree with you, Nick, on the Saturday night game. I feel Saskatchewan is starting to better ball again under Corey Mace. I have Saskatchewan beating Edmonton, I just think they're regressing again, and I think there'll be more changes to the coaching staff at the end of this year in Edmonton.
Yeah, Saskatchewan's just got to get a little bit more disciplined. It's funny because I say that about the Argos all the time, but yeah, I think if Saskatchewan was able to clean its game up, and I don't know, like I said 2 weeks ago that switching McLeod out for Ford was a terrible decision, and then they put him back in, and he's cold. And I mean, to be fair, that first half was really not. You can't blame McLeod for much of it because he wasn't on the frickin' field for any of the game. So, but yeah, tough situation there in Edmonton. So I just hope it doesn't regress to being like it was there at the beginning of the year.
And finally, we'll wrap this up with my post-game interview with Argos kicker Liam Hairolahu. I think I finally got that name right.
Yep.
Right. And I got to give the Argos credit. They gave me a pronunciation sheet as well, which comes in handy. And we're going to talk to the former Dallas Cowboys kicker and 2017 Grey Cup champion Liam for the Toronto Argonauts. Just 1 second, guys.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate those guys. They always, whenever I need extra reps, they come and help me out. So I'm really appreciative of the effort they put in just to help me become successful and the team successful. So I'm just fortunate to have the great group of guys around me that goes with the O-line as well. And those guys are always there to help me out. Absolutely. No, absolutely. We knew it was a tough opponent, and we just wanted to come out and get that W. The East is heating up, and so are we. So we're gunning for minimum first place. We still have a chance.
How important was the field different this week than last week?
Yeah, I mean, I actually switched my shoes. I have my regular soccer shoes, and then I have a football cleat and my soccer shoe that I kick with. And this week, I spoke to Danny, and he got me one of the 7 studs and actually used one of his cleats. And made a tremendous difference because the field out there was still a little bit soft. So really helped me plant and be able to be confident on my plant so I can actually focus on my technique and my kicking. Warm. As I'm getting older, and now I don't have any punting duties. When I'm out there that often, it just helps my body stay warm for the game. So I enjoy it.
Thank you, Liam.
What makes BMO Field such a great place to kick?
Say that again, sorry?
What makes BMO Field such a great place to kick?
I mean, it's home. It's not easy. A lot of these CFL stadiums are really tough because they have open air. But, I think the biggest thing is understanding how the wind moves in this stadium and the experience with that. That's what helped me today.
And how much of an adjustment was it coming back to the CFL after not being there since 2019?
It's football to me. I'm training all the time, and I'm just thankful to be playing football. And I love the sport so much. So that's the key. I just want to keep playing, keep winning.
Congrats on the record, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Congrats.
Thoughts, Nick, on that interview?
Never doubt Danny Webb. Now they just got to get him to.
I wanted to
the
mention that,
helmet.
Nick. That's one thing I want to do is one day either get Danny Webb on or somebody who did the equipment, because people don't realize too. These guys do a huge job. The guys behind the scenes, and people don't realize too. It's not just kicking a football. It's the center, the holder, and you also want to make sure as a kicker you have the proper footwear on. And BMO Field lately, the last couple of games, the field hasn't been as good because of the rain, plus the soccer team and the Argos as well. So I'm glad Liam brought up Danny Webb because he's very valuable for the Argonauts as an equipment manager.
There's a reason they've won every Grey Cup they've been in. Excluding the one in 82, I think it was, where it was like Danny Webb's first
87.
year. Yeah, 87.
Yeah, 87.
Yeah, he was there that first year that they lost, but after that they've won every Grey Cup they've been in since, and Danny Webb is without a doubt the reason why. I think we already heard many times now in the 2022 game how he managed to create a little heat warming area, so to expand the area where players were able to stand and keep warm when they weren't out there on the field like those. And you saw that Liam talk about it, keeping warm on the sidelines without much to do, having to come in and then suddenly kick a game-winning field goal with no time left on the clock, and having to do that. So it's really important for what the equipment management team do to keep those players ready to go at a moment's notice.
Yeah, because I really would like to eventually have one of these guys on our show to talk about the equipment aspect and the behind the scenes. And I want to say thank you to Chris Belnovich, the media communications manager for the Toronto Argonauts this year, for giving me more media opportunities and getting to talk to these guys. And they're great to talk to and ask questions and stuff like that, Nick. And before we wrap this show up, just thoughts on this weekend's games and the Argos game against Winnipeg next Friday night, quickly.
Well, I'm trying to watch this Winnipeg game closely. Zach Collaros already came up to above 100 passing yards now, I think. So, yeah, it looks like it's not quite the same Zach Collaros that they saw in week 2. So I think it's just not relying too much on previous game footage, because it looks like they're pulling more tricks out of the bag than they did the last couple of weeks.
And Nick, OUA football this week. What's going on there?
Oh, yeah. Well, there might not be CFL football, but I'm going to be heading over to Laurier tomorrow to see my Golden Hawks take on the Queens Gales, which should be huge because it's their last home game. They beat Ottawa on their homecoming game last week, and then they're on the road, and they've still got a road game against Windsor, who's also hasn't lost a game, although Windsor's had a significantly easier schedule compared to the Golden Hawks. That being said, you gotta play the best to be the best. So I'm looking forward to it. That's all I can say.
What time is the kickoff tomorrow?
I haven't looked, but it's usually 1 p.m. So.
All right. And speaking of the Detroit Tigers, they are playing the American League Divisional Series Game 1 tomorrow against the Cleveland Guardians. They've played Cleveland 2,300 plus times in the regular season in over 132 years, and this is their first meeting. And this is a great time of the year, Nick. You got the CFL coming down to the playoff stretch, get the NFL back, college football in Canada and the States. The NHL's coming back, so it's just a beautiful time of the year. And baseball playoffs, there's nothing better than the baseball playoffs. And anyways, Nick, I want to say thank you for coming on episode 15 tonight. And our show is live streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X, and Instagram, and available on all major audio platforms. And the Argo Bounce Live Audio Show is on WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And we're also looking for more sponsorships for our show. So if you're interested in bringing your business on as a sponsor of the Argo Bounce Live Audio Show, please contact myself or Nick Small as well. Final thoughts, Nick, before we wrap this up.
Go Argos, and see you guys next week.
Thank you so much, Nick, and we'll see you maybe on October 12th for the Marlies San Diego game. I will be down on Saturdays the 12th for the Marlies San Diego American Hockey League game, and on the 19th for the Argos Ottawa game at BMO Field. Argos are off until Friday, October 11th against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I want to say thank you again to my co-host Nick for coming on here tonight. And thank you to everybody watching the Argo Bounce Live Audio Show. Nick and I will be back next week. The date and time to be announced. And hopefully we'll be able to talk about an Argos win over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So I hope everybody has a great night. Enjoy the action tonight between Hamilton and Winnipeg. And then the late game tonight is Calgary and BC. And Saturday we have at 7 o'clock Saturday night, Saskatchewan taking on Edmonton with the Argos, Alouettes, and Ottawa on bye. So I want to say thank you to Nick Small, and thank you to everyone watching the Argo Bounce Live Audio Show, live streamed and also on audio platforms and WQEE 99.1 FM. I hope everybody has a great night. And we'll see you back here next week for episode 16 of the Argo Bounce Live Audio Show with
Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go, go, go! Go Toronto Argos, go, go, go! Pull together, fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the